What if I told you that tonight, just before falling asleep, millions of people around the world will experience the exact same thing? They will lie down in bed, turn off the lights, pull up the blanket, close their eyes, and hope to drift peacefully into sleep. But then, without warning, their brain will suddenly play an old scene, a memory they never asked to revisit, a memory they wish they could forget. Not a major disaster, not a life-changing mistake, not some catastrophic event, just something small, something painfully awkward, something embarrassing. Maybe it was a joke nobody laughed at. Maybe it was the wrong thing said at exactly the wrong moment. Maybe it was a text sent to the wrong person. Maybe it was waving back at someone who wasn't waving at you. Maybe it was tripping in public. Or maybe it was something that happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even 20 years ago. Yet somehow, the memory remains perfectly preserved, as if it happened yesterday. And the moment it appears, your body reacts. Your face feels warm, your stomach tightens, your heart beats a little faster. You bury your face in a pillow. You groan, you cringe, and a single thought echoes through your mind. Why did I do that? But here is the real mystery. Why does this happen? Why do embarrassing memories seem to wait patiently until the exact moment we are trying to sleep? Why do these tiny moments survive for years while we struggle to remember what we ate last week? And perhaps most importantly, why does our brain keep bringing them back? Tonight, we are diving deep into one of the most universal human experiences, a phenomenon that affects students, employees, entrepreneurs, scientists, artists, celebrities, and almost everyone who has ever lived. This is the story of why we remember embarrassing moments before sleep. And the answer is far more fascinating than most people realize. Let's begin with something important. Embarrassment feels trivial, but from the perspective of the human brain, it is anything but trivial. For most of human history, survival depended heavily on belonging to a group. Humans were never the strongest creatures. We were not the fastest. We did not have claws. We did not have fangs. What we had was each other. Being accepted by a tribe increased your chances of survival. Being rejected could be dangerous, sometimes even deadly. Because of this, our brains evolved to become extremely sensitive to social situations. To our ancestors, social mistakes mattered. Being laughed at, being excluded, being viewed negatively by others. These things carried real consequences. And although modern life is very different, our brains still carry many of those ancient instincts. So when something embarrassing happens, your brain often treats it as more than just a funny moment. It treats it as a social threat. And social threats leave powerful impressions. Imagine you are giving a presentation. Everything is going well. Then suddenly, you forget a word. You stumble. You say something awkward. The room goes quiet. Maybe only for a second. Maybe nobody even cares. But your brain notices instantly. Deep inside your brain, an alarm system activates. Not because your life is in danger, but because your social image might be. And that emotional intensity tells the brain something important. Remember this. Don't let this happen again. As a result, the memory becomes highly memorable. Not because your brain wants to torture you, but because your brain believes it is helping you survive. The problem is, Our brains are sometimes a little too enthusiastic. They don't always know the difference between a life-threatening lesson and an awkward moment from high school. Now, let's talk about sleep, or more specifically, the moments just before sleep. During the day, your brain is constantly busy. Work, school, messages, notifications, videos, conversations, music, social media, emails, news, endless streams of information. All of these distractions create mental noise, a huge amount of noise. But at night, something changes. The world becomes quieter. The distractions disappear. The notifications slow down. The conversations end. And for the first time all day, your mind has room to wander. This is where things get interesting. Because when external noise decreases, internal noise becomes easier to hear. Thoughts that were buried during the day begin to surface. Unfinished worries, old memories, regrets, questions, and yes, embarrassing moments. It's similar to standing in a city. During rush hour, you cannot hear a distant clock ticking. But late at night, when everything becomes quiet, even the smallest sounds become noticeable. The same thing happens inside your mind. Psychologists often refer to a process called rumination. Rumination occurs when we repeatedly think about the same event, over and over again. We replay it, analyze it, examine every detail. We imagine what we should have said, what we should have done, how things could have gone differently. And unfortunately, every replay strengthens the memory. The brain starts interpreting the repeated attention as evidence that the memory is important, so it stores it even more deeply, which makes it easier to remember next time, creating a cycle. The more you remember it, the easier it becomes to remember again. But here's something surprising. Most people don't remember your embarrassing moments. Seriously, they don't. There is a psychological phenomenon known as the spotlight effect. It describes our tendency to overestimate how much other people notice us. We often feel like everyone is watching, everyone is judging, everyone remembers. But in reality, most people are far too busy thinking about themselves. Think about the last time someone else made a small social mistake. Do you remember it? Probably not. Yet your own mistakes feel unforgettable. That is because you experienced them from the inside. You felt every emotion, every heartbeat, every second of discomfort, while everyone else simply moved on. Researchers have found that emotional memories are often stored more strongly than neutral memories. This is one reason embarrassing experiences linger. Emotion acts like a highlighter. The stronger the emotional reaction, the brighter the highlight. And embarrassment is a surprisingly powerful emotion. It combines fear, self-awareness, social anxiety, and vulnerability, all at once. This emotional cocktail tells the brain, this matters, even when it really doesn't. But there is another fascinating reason these memories appear before sleep. Your brain is actually preparing for sleep. During sleep, especially deep sleep, the brain organizes information, processes experiences, strengthens some memories, weakens others. Scientists refer to part of this process as memory consolidation. Before this nightly reorganization begins, the brain sometimes revisits recent and emotionally significant experiences, almost like a librarian sorting books before closing time. And occasionally, while searching through those shelves, it stumbles across something embarrassing from years ago. Then, suddenly, there it is, playing in high definition inside your head. Now let's discuss one of the strangest quirks of the human mind. The harder you try not to think about something, the more likely you are to think about it. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. Imagine I tell you, Do not think about a white bear. Don't picture it. Don't imagine it. Don't visualize it. Whatever you do, don't think about a white bear. What happens? Most people immediately imagine one, because monitoring whether you're thinking about something requires your brain to check for that very thing. And embarrassing memories work the same way. The moment you say, "I don't want to think about that," your brain begins searching for exactly that memory and accidentally brings it back into focus. Perhaps the most comforting truth is this: the memories that make us cringe today often become stories we laugh about tomorrow. Think about childhood. Think about adolescence. Think about your teenage years. Many moments that once felt devastating now seem harmless. Some even seem funny. Time changes perspective. The events remain the same, but we change. We grow. We gain experience. We realize that the world did not end because we said something awkward. Life continued. People moved on. And eventually, so did we. In fact, embarrassment may serve a valuable purpose. It teaches us social awareness. It helps us learn. It encourages self-reflection. It reminds us that we care about how we affect others. Without embarrassment, human societies might function very differently. The emotion exists for a reason. The problem isn't feeling embarrassment. The problem is holding on to it long after its lesson has been learned. And perhaps that is what many of us are really doing late at night. We are revisiting old classrooms, old conversations, old mistakes, old versions of ourselves, versions that were less experienced, less mature, less knowledgeable, versions that were still learning. And sometimes we judge those older versions far too harshly. We expect perfection from people we used to be, even though perfection was never possible. The truth is, every person alive has a collection of embarrassing memories. Every single one. The most confident people, the most successful people, the people who seem to have everything figured out. They all have moments they wish they could erase. Because embarrassment is not proof that you failed at being human. It is proof that you are human. So the next time you're lying in bed and your brain suddenly decides to replay an awkward moment from 10 years ago, remember this: the event probably mattered far less than you think. Most of the people involved have likely forgotten it. Many of them probably forgot it the very next day. You are likely the only audience member still watching the replay. And perhaps it's time to leave the theater. Because life is far too vast, far too beautiful, and far too short to spend every night haunted by a few uncomfortable seconds from the distant past. And if those memories do return, maybe instead of cringing, you can smile. Not because the moment was enjoyable, but because you survived it. You learned from it. You grew beyond it. And most importantly, you are no longer the person who made that mistake. You are the person who learned from it. Because in the end, the embarrassing moments we remember before sleep are not evidence of our failures. They are evidence of our growth. They are reminders that we were learning. And the fact that we can look back and cringe often means we have already become better than we were. And perhaps that is something worth sleeping peacefully about.